In modern football, we have seen clubs like Man City, Chelsea and PSG rise to dominance thanks to billionaire owners pumping in endless cash. But not every club is so lucky. For every success story, there are countless teams that came crashing down when the money ran out or the owners left. Today, we're looking at some of the most spectacular football club failures caused by reckless spending, mismanagement and financial disasters. In 2011, Dagestani billionaire Suleyman Kerimov bought Anzhi Makhachkala, a small club based in the troubled region of Dagestan, a team that spent most of the 2000s in the second Russian division. With his wealth, Kerimov promised to make Anzhi a global football powerhouse. In that same year, the club brought in some new players. A lot of players, including some very big names such as Yuri Zhirkov, Roberto Carlos and Samuel Eto'o, who was given a world record salary. Under coach Gus Hiddink, Anzhi finished 5th in the Russian Premier League in 2011-12 season, securing European football for the first time. Next season was even better. They added Lassane Diarra and Willian to the squad, as they finished in 3rd place in the league and impressed in Europe. They destroyed all of their opponents in the qualifying, before finishing 2nd in their Europa League group, where they managed to win one of the games against Liverpool. Their journey ended in round of 16 when they lost to Newcastle. It looked like Anzhi were going to challenge for the title in 2013-14 season, as at the start of the window they signed 2 good players, Igor Denisov and Alexander Kokorin. But just 2 months later, Kerimov, the owner, pulled his financial backing, citing financial difficulties and political instability of the region as the key factors. Another source said it was due to sharp decline in the health of Kerimov because of worries about the club's lack of success. The club was forced to sell its stars, including Willian and Eto'o, who both left for Chelsea. Kokorin and Denisov, who were signed at the start of the window, also left for Dynamo Moscow just 2 months after they joined. Without the billionaires' funding, the club couldn't maintain its success. The team declined rapidly as they failed to win in 19 games in a row, finishing last and getting relegated. Anzhi were promoted on their first try back, but they struggled back in the top division and spent few years mainly fighting against relegation. Further finance problems continued, as in 2019 they failed to receive a license to play in the 2nd division. In 2022, the Russian FA did not grant Anzhi the license that is necessary to play in the 3rd division. The club was therefore dissolved in 2022. Malaga was struggling financially towards the end of the 2000s. Then President Fernando Sanz found investments at Doha in Qatar to launch an ambitious project, entering in conversation with Sheikh Abdullah bin Nasser Al Thani. Qatari businessman invested heavily to transform the club into a Spanish football powerhouse. Under his leadership, the club signed big names like Ruud van Nistelrooy, Santi Cazorla and Isco, as well as other names such as Nacho Monreal or Higuain. Malaga's biggest achievement came in the 2011-12 season when they finished 4th in La Liga, qualifying for the Champions League for the first time in the club's history. In their Champions League group, they finished 1st ahead of AC Milan, Zenit and Anderlecht, before being eliminated in the quarterfinals against Dortmund. However, Malaga's hefty transfer fees and high wages were seeing them make a loss, with a small stadium and limited commercial opportunities providing no help. At one point they were even failing to pay their players on time. As a result of the new financial fair play regulations, they became the first club to be banned from a UEFA competition and were handed a €300,000 fine. Al Thani also had disputes with business partners and the local government regarding a planned marina project, which resulted in him pulling back with his initial investment. As a result, Malaga needed to offload some of their star players to make the ends meet. Cazorla and Monreal were sold to Arsenal, along with Rondon, who left for Rubin Kazan. In the summer, Isco was sold to Real Madrid and Toulalan to AS Monaco. Malaga was eventually relegated to the 2nd division in 2018, and their financial struggles continued to affect their ability to recover. In 2010, Chinese real estate giant Evergrande Group, owned by billionaire Zhu Qiyin, bought Guangzhou FC and transformed it into the most dominant club in Chinese football history. With massive financial backing, Guangzhou signed high-profile players and coaches, including Robinho, Paulinho, Jackson Martinez and Fabio Cannavaro as manager. The club's spending aligned with China's government-backed push to improve domestic football, allowing them to dominate the Chinese Super League, winning 8 league titles between 2011 and 2019. Guangzhou also became the first Chinese team to win the AFC Champions League in 2013 and repeated defeat in 2015, establishing themselves as Asia's top football club. However, Guangzhou's success was built on unsustainable spending and financial mismanagement. The team had an operating loss of over $200 million in 2015. Things quickly began to change. The Chinese FA, wary of the spiraling spending, introduced a luxury tax that made big money transfers prohibitively expensive. A salary cap was also introduced and sponsors were banned from naming teams after themselves, meaning Guangzhou Evergrande were renamed to Guangzhou FC. In 2021, Evergrande Group, China's largest real estate developer, collapsed under $300 billion in debt. The company filed for bankruptcy in 2022, which meant that Guangzhou's ambitious stadium plans were cancelled and players were sold, culminating in relegation later that year. In 2025, Guangzhou FC were expelled from the professional leagues of Chinese football, following the failure to pay off their debt. Gretna was a tiny Scottish club based in a city with a population of 3,000 people, until English millionaire Brooks Mileson took over in 2002. With his financial backing, the club rose from the 4th tier to the Scottish Premier League in just 5 years, an incredible achievement for a club of its size. During their seasons of successive promotions, they scored 297 goals, 130 of them in the 2004-2005 season alone. They even made it to the final of the Scottish Cup in 2006, losing on penalties. Nevertheless, they qualified for UEFA Cup as a 3rd tier side. They won promotion to the 1st tier in 2007 by finishing 1 point ahead of St Johnstone thanks to a last-minute goal in the last game of the season. However, this was the end of their fairy tale run. In 2008, Mileson fell seriously ill and stopped funding the club. The club had accumulated debts of nearly £4 million. They struggled to pay players' wages, with many players leaving during the season. They finished the season in the top division last, with only 13 points after a 10-point deduction. After the season, the club entered administration, and shortly after, the club was liquidated and ceased to exist. Brooks Mileson never recovered from his health problems and died in November 2008. Portsmouth's rise came after Sasha Gajdamak bought the club in 2006, and he injected significant funds to bring in high-profile players. With the help of manager Harry Redknapp and players like David James, Sol Campbell and Kanu, Portsmouth secured a top-half Premier League finish for the first time in 50 years in 2006-07 season. The good times continued to roll in at Portsmouth as they won the 2008 FA Cup and had some memorable moments in the UEFA Cup next year, most notably a 2-2 draw with AC Milan. But crucially, it was all done with borrowed money, with a bank debt of £43 million guaranteed solely by Gajdamak. In late 2008, Sasha's wallet had been hit by the financial crisis and he had to sell, and whoever he sold to would be taking on that debt. What followed was a series of debatable owners. The club accumulated massive debts, leading to administration in 2010, which resulted in a 9-point deduction and relegation from the Premier League. In 2011, Russian businessman Vladimir Antonov bought the club, but within months he was arrested for financial fraud. After players were not being paid, Portsmouth were docked points again and got relegated to League One and then to League Two in 2013. Luckily for them, Michael Eisner, who purchased the club in 2017, has been a better owner than the previous ones, and they are slowly climbing back as they are back in the Championship in 2025, but still far from their best days in the late 2000s.